Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Journey into Comics with your hosts, Nate Phillips and Brandon Stone.
I'm a god, you dull creature.
Hey guys, and welcome to another BrandoCast right here on Journey into Comics. Tonight, we'll journey into metal, if you will. Nick Torres and Blaine Tyner stopped by last night, and we had a conversation about heavy metal music and the impact it's had on us throughout the years. We had some technical difficulties setting things up last night, and we got it going and all seemed well until I sat down today to put the show up, and it seems we had some problems with the mics. Basically, it was a really bad echo, and you can hear everything twice. I tried fiddling it for a while, try to get it all worked out, but in the end I decided it was best to stop, put up what I can in the best quality I can for now. And so what you're about to hear is the whole conversation basically through one microphone. Nick and Blaine will sound a little distant, but they're picked up okay. Essentially it's similar to a podcast we did back in September of last year with one mic, but since since we all thought it was all good and well, I didn't position the mic accordingly to pick up everyone equally, and so they're going to sound a little bit more distant. I'm going to sound a little bit more up front, if you will. But, it is what it is. It happens, as Nate would say. And this show does happen. So sit back and enjoy the journey into MetalCast. Hey, guys.
Hey, guys.
Apathetic. This is emo metal. We're gonna style our hair for the first 15 minutes of the fucking podcast.
Dear diary.
Gonna
Mood. Apathetic. Do you remember that, the emo song?
Emo song, yeah. Wasn't that Hollywood Undead?
No, that was used.
No, it was like fucking... wasn't an actual band?
I thought it was Hollywood Undead.
I thought it was like something off
used.
of like fucking some website.
I'm looking
I want to know the fucking
Dear,
answer.
Dear diary. Mood. Apathetic.
I'm like pretty sure I'm right.
I don't know. I didn't know it was an actual band.
Yeah, those are the first words of there.
Yep. That's all I remember.
Must be emo.
Yeah.
That must be emo.
By Hollywood Undead.
Right, whatever.
Really?
So,
I didn't know they were around back then.
That was like one of their first things they did.
They're like the same band anyway.
They came on Octane today, and I was like, this is shit. Turn to liquid metal.
I liked some Hollywood
I
Undead.
hate Hollywood Undead.
Like when they first came out, I was like, oh, this ain't too bad, but then...
Their singer has a side project, and it sounds exactly like Hollywood Undead.
You mean kind of like David Draymond and Device?
Yeah, except Device was kick-ass.
I will say the guitars did sound a lot different.
Yeah, the guitar sounded different. It's like The Sickness, but it's The Sickness meets Ministry and Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, okay.
It's Disturbed when they were heavy, but with a lot more electronic.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And Dan Donegan, he's like Disturbed's guitarist. He's really into electronica, but he does it tastefully. He like inserts it in like little tiny increments, like little bits. Like if it wasn't there, you would notice something was missing from the song. But if it's there, you don't notice it.
Mm-hmm. It just it adds flavor.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I've never heard it.
You never heard of Device?
No.
Device,
Really?
it's pretty cool.
It's not bad. I actually, when the album came out, I listened to the whole thing and thought it was pretty decent.
There's 2 covers on that.
Close Your Eyes Forever,
which is amazing.
Yeah,
I like it better than the
it was
original.
with Jenna Hale. Is that her name?
Lizzie Hale.
Lizzie Hale. Why did I say Jenna Hale?
And the other one was
Jennifer Hale. That's fucking Naomi from Metal Gear Solid.
nice.
Oh, wow.
And Female Shepherd. So I'm getting my Hales mixed up.
The other cover on that album was a Nine Inch Nails cover. It was Wish.
Yeah.
And that cover was badass.
I really like how just Disturbed in general, they started like throwing out some of these covers.
Yeah. Me and Joe from Camry side, he literally thinks of what song could Disturbed cover. Like, this is a thought that runs through his head every now and then.
Well, and
he said Highway to Hell.
Yeah, man, maybe.
They can cover just about anything.
I like how they cock tease you in Living After Midnight with the drum opening, the Painkiller. You're like, first time I heard it, I was like, this isn't Living After Midnight, it's a Painkiller. Are they, what? I'm like, I want to hear him like do the high-pitched vocals. And, like,
right.
And like, he's not going to be able to do it. I'm like, oh, okay. I see what you did there.
and he's not going to be able to do it.
I don't know, man. Maybe Journeyman will prove me wrong one day and just go out
I'm
there.
ready for New Disturbed. I'm ready. I can honestly say I'm ready for it.
I've always enjoyed Disturbed. They are a band. They're one of the few bands I have that I'm always like here with it. Mm-hmm. It's like I either really enjoy the album or I really don't enjoy the album. It's not that I don't hate any of their records. It's just whether or not how much I'm into it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Believe. I didn't get into Believe, and
That's my favorite.
And I didn't get into the one after 10,000 Fists. Indestructible. I really didn't get into that one either. Although I do like The Night.
The Night, yeah.
I really like that song.
Those two albums. Indestructible, it's actually the only, besides Believe. Believe's my favorite album.
Mm-hmm.
But Indestructible, it's the only album of theirs I can listen to from front to back without skipping anything. It's just a solid record, in my opinion. It's just...
Yeah, it's kind of weird. The other band that I kind of do that back and forth with is Megadeth.
Yeah.
It's like I'll like a few albums and I'm like, that one wasn't very good, and then I'll like the next one, and then the next one after that it's like, and then it's like it's almost like the stock market. They keep going up and down. But anyway, guys,
yes.
That is the intro to Journey into Comics MetalCast. Yeah, dude, we are just totally laid back, and basically. What we're doing at the MetalCast is something that me and Nate have talked about doing for some time, but he's not here. So I'm doing it with a couple of my esteemed panelists here that I work with who are really into metal. And basically, this is an offshoot. Every other week, we like to just come at you with, a way one-on-one with like a co-host. Let one of the guys take a kind of a week off, and well, this is Nate's week off. That's why he's not here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take about an hour or so, and we're just going to talk about metal. I'm very passionate and I love metal, and so is Nate, so maybe he'll be here next time. But pretty much, I want to welcome here again. Once again, this is the second podcast that he's been on. He is the one and only unflappable Nick Torres.
Hello.
Hello, Nick. How you doing?
Doing good.
Yeah?
Doing good.
So how'd you like that weird, that cold opening?
No, I kind of saw it coming.
Okay.
I kind of saw it coming. That's because I knew you were recording.
Yeah.
So when he asked if we were, I was like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
But it is what it is.
Well, it's like, I actually tried to start recording, but I kind of clipped recording a little bit. So I'm like, you know what? We're just going to hit the recording button and just go on. And our other guy here is another one of our coworkers. His first time on any podcast?
Yes.
On any podcast. Well, I'm glad to have you on. It is the one and only, the boss, Blaine, Tyner.
The boss, Blaine, Tyner. Yes.
See, it's funny. It's like when I introduce people, I always got to give them some sort of title.
I guess I'm the boss.
Don't let it go to your head.
I'm not going to let that go to my head. I die.
Well,
I die in Metal Gear Solid 3.
I didn't even make that. I was thinking of like a weird, like I can't remember his name now. Come on now, the boss, Bruce Springsteen.
Oh,
I was thinking of Springsteen for some reason.
Springsteen.
Metal.
Dude, he is so metal. He put his hat in his back pocket.
Oh.
Wow.
That was.
Didn't he have like really skinny jeans?
He did
Sound
though.
like Moose Knuckle.
Well, he was. Wasn't he? Was that album from the back?
Was that album from the
I thought he was like showing his ass on that record. Or was it from the front?
I don't remember. I just remember that he had tight jeans.
Dude, okay. We were doing this MetalCast in my game room, and the only two records I have in here are Ghostbusters and Lionel Richie.
That is awesome.
So
I didn't even see the Ghostbusters. That's awesome.
Me neither.
So
I did make notice of the Lionel Richie earlier, though, and the Macho Man action figure.
oh, dude, this is the nerdiest room that I've ever had.
As I'm wearing
An Ultimate
the
Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior T-shirt designed by Mr. Alan Ashcraft of Across the Sun.
A little bit of a a little bit of a cheap plug. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Hey man, this show is all about cheap plugs. Anyway, so today we're really diving into a topic that all three of us are pretty passionate about. All three of us pretty much live and die by this shit.
Metal.
I mean, I've grown to like a lot of different musical styles, but I still always come back to metal. Metal it's what's in my heart, it's what's in my soul, and so we're just gonna dial this all the way back to like the late '90s because I didn't grow up on metal. I grew into metal because I grew up on country and classic rock, and it's just what my parents played. It's what my grandparents played. So while I did have some country from the time, like the bands that would kind of push me into metal, of course, you got your Sabbath, you got your Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. But other bands like Boston, more classic rock bands, Boston, Foreigner, a little bit Skinner. All that's kind of in my background. But it was like, I think every kid kind of does this, is that they search for their own voice, their own kind of musical style to kind of differ themselves from their parents. It's like us, we all love metal. If we have kids, they're going to love something that we hate.
Yeah, it's going to suck.
Right. Oh, dude. I mean, it's going to happen. So for me, is like, I kind of went to rap, like kind of like the mid to late 90s. I listened to a lot of Snoop. I listened to a lot of Tupac.
That would have been an interesting transition into metal itself, because early to mid 90s new metal.
Exactly. See, that's exactly kind of how I transitioned over, because it was Korn, little bit, not too much, Limp Bizkit and Kid Rock, namely the Devil Without a Cause record.
Oh yeah.
Okay, when that record came out, I remember seeing the music video for like Bawa to Bar or something. I'm like, I kind of like that.
Oh, that CD is a great CD.
Oh, dude,
I'll admit it's a great CD. I'll jam it.
Dude, it's awesome.
I'll jam Cocky. I don't care.
I'm
Dude.
not a Kid Rock fan.
Hey, dude, to each his own. But that's how I got into the first metal band. Well, sort of. It was sort of a sort of like an elevation, because he actually sampled one of their songs, and that's Metallica. Mm-hmm. But that's not how I got into them, because I got into Metallica because of pro wrestling.
Okay.
Now, I'd heard some of their songs before. I didn't really know who they were. But I was watching ECW, and they have a character called the Sandman. And what does he come out to? Enter Sandman. Okay. So I remember watching it, and I went, I know that song. I've heard it before. I never knew who did it. I'm like, I love this song. I need to go buy this album. The next day, we went to Walmart, of all places, and I'm looking through the Metallica CDs, Master Puppets, Justice, no Sandman, no Sandman. I finally find the Black Album. And I'm like, Mom, I want this, And she goes, okay. And at this point, I have my own portable CD player, which they don't have those anymore. So on the way home, she's like, hey, we're stopping by your aunt and uncle's. I'm like, okay, I'm staying in the car.
This generation will never know that struggle of having a CD player, a portable CD
a Discman,
trying to fucking walk with it,
so it doesn't skip, or put it in your front pouch of your hoodie or your fucking jean pockets.
I know.
I feel like you're on the bomb squad when you're walking with one of those things, trying not to like make it skip.
Being on the school bus and they go over some railroad tracks and you're listening to your CD and it's like, oh man, that was my favorite part.
All right, so pretty much what I did with that record was I of course, Enter Sandman's first track on it. And as soon as I get done, I would hit back.
Oh, of course.
Back. And then I was kind of like zoning out because I was sitting in the car just by myself listening to that one song over and over again. And then I let it go to track 2. I'm like, there's no way the rest of this album's going to be this good.
And you were pleasantly surprised.
I was, dude. That album blew me away. And it was the stepping stone. Because then it was like instantly, I had that record. The next album I got from Metallica was Kill 'Em All. I went all the way back.
Wow.
All the way back. And I mean, eventually I got all their records. But that was the band that started it for me, was Metallica.
Okay.
And then the natural progression from that, from being for thrash, was Megadeth. I got into Megadeth next, and then Pantera. And it was just a slippery slope from there. I mean, there were other bands along the way. I got into some Sabbath, Iron Maiden. I loved Iron Maiden. I still do. But at that time, it was like it was like a floodgate opened up, and it was like all these bands. And it's almost like you're a woman in a shoe store. You're like, I'll try this one. Okay, maybe not so much. I'll put that over here for maybe. And then I'm like, dude, these are awesome. I don't have that much money. I want these. Oh crap, Napster.
Right.
Yeah. So actually, they were still around when that happened, but. I use LimeWire, but
yeah, I was gonna say
LimeWire, BearShare, and LimeWire were my first.
I forgot about BearShare.
But yeah, that's how I got into it. It just slowly happened, and then it was the floodgate. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned earlier that Kid Rock sampled a song, and that was "Sad But True" for American Badass. And it was funny is that I didn't even know that because I was still.
I didn't know it till way later either. I think Silent Rob told me about
dude,
that.
Yeah. And you never really know if Silent Rob is here.
And could be the fourth mic. I mean,
yeah. Anyway, so I got History of Rock was the Kid Rock record, and I was listening to it. And what's funny is I was going back and forth between Black Album and that, it didn't even click. I was, and then we were driving home from a vacation, and I'm like, wait a minute, they ripped that off. Like, screw you, Kid Rock.
Fucking Vanilla Ice to this shit.
I know, and of course by that time I knew all about that story. I'm like looking through the liner notes. I'm like, special thanks to James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. I'm like, oh, cool. That's cool now. And it was water under the bridge. Unfortunately, that was the last Kid Rock record I really got into. You mentioned Cocky, and it was okay.
But some cool riffs, I thought.
I think that he's a good artist, but I mean, he's somebody that's kind of evolved over time. But
yes.
That is my beginnings for metal, is Metallica. So, Nick, I'm going to pass it on to you. And how did you get started into metal?
It's funny because I actually got started, I guess at an early age. My dad was always into like grunge and hair metal and Van Halen and all those bands. So I grew up on that. And then I kind of, like you, went through a little rap phase. Mm-hmm. Like the Nelly era.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me that story. Right? So, you got the two, right?
Yep. And so when it came to my birthday one year, my mom had gotten me 2 CDs. And she didn't know what she was going to get me. This was like, I was in 5th grade, so I didn't know anything about anything yet. And so she got me Nelly Country Grammar and Disturbed's Believe. And so those were my first 2 CDs that I ever had with my little Walkman. And I obviously, started digging the Disturbed and just like, man, this is awesome. And I kind of think of Disturbed as more rock. Mm-hmm. But I just started getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And then one day I was walking home from school, and I looked over and there was a bin of records, just vinyl records, just 2 huge bins. And I just picked them up and took them home and got a record player and started going through there. And there was stuff like Iron Maiden and Sabbath and all those. And I was like, this is so cool. And
so, like, what kind of condition were they in, though, for just sitting there?
I mean, so actually it was raining that day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a light rain. It sucks because my sleeves are kind of damaged, obviously, from the water. But the vinyl itself is all good and extremely playable, so I've always been happy about that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I got into all that vinyl and then just started listening to different bands. Korn was my favorite band through like most of middle school.
Yeah.
I was into like Korn and Fear Factory.
Okay.
Ooh, Fear Factory.
Yeah, and I just eventually I found Slipknot and then stayed with them and just got heavier and heavier until high school. And then I was a hardcore kid for like a year or 2 and
it's okay.
Now I am what I am.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That's cool, dude. I mean, it's kind of cool that you mentioned like the whole kind of record story, because I also had a similar thing with records, but it was more so, like as I said, with the classic rock. I ended up like raiding my parents' record collection that had stuff like AC/DC and like Thin Lizzy and Foghat. I don't know. Yeah, it is. I'm like, dude, Fool for the City, yes. And that's funny because that was at a time. I want to say I found that after I'd already gotten into metal, so I started like kind of like was what else is out there, because now of course I'm like a multiverse sort of metalhead. It's
right.
like I like almost every single type of metal.
Yes.
So, and I know that Blaine, you're the same kind of way with that. So, how did you really get started?
It's crazy because like music has never been, as far as I know, never been a big deal in my family. Mm-hmm. It's just like my dad, he would play 93.5, which is the local rock station around here. He played that. There'd be classic rock, some oldies.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's like all the music I listened to. So I grew up, and then eventually he eventually switched to like the local pop stations, and so I would listen to like 96.5 or 102.9, which are really bad pop stations around here.
Yes, they are.
And
at least one of them doesn't play rap anymore.
Yeah,
and it's not even like the good rap. It's always like
it's
the newer
R&B.
It's like
shit like that.
The kind of rap that they quit playing was the kind of rap that was just the kind of rap that gives rap a bad name.
Yeah.
If I can be vague enough about that.
That kind of rap.
It's so weird to hear you guys talk about radio stations since I'm not from down here. It's like, these don't make any sense.
Right.
Up in Chicago, it's Q101 if you wanted your rock and metal. Now that's gone.
I remember Indy had X103.
X103, that's still a thing. I believe
it is still a thing, but every time it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be this like really great station that played a lot of hard rock, and I believe at one point it even cussed. There's a lot of cuss words.
Anytime I click on the station now, it's always The Offspring.
Oh gosh.
Every single time, it's like the same. It's like they play the same Offspring song all day.
Well, anyways.
Yeah,
so,
sorry, tangent.
No, it's all good. Anyway, so like I eventually, going into middle school, I started listening to what my friends listened to, and that was a lot of like new age punk, like Good Charlotte and stuff like that. I also went through like a bit of a rap phase as well, like Eminem, D12, which includes Eminem, yeah, stuff like that. But like I guess the first band I was ever really, really into was Creed.
I like this because we talked about getting together to do a MetalCast, to gush about metal. And we opened with you and me gushing about Disturbed and Device. And
Don't worry.
All of us having rap phases, and now we're going into Creed. This is awesome.
Well, Creed, I always enjoyed the instrumentals. Mark Tremonti, he's probably one of the most underrated guitar players out there.
I agree 100%.
And Scott Stapp, he's decent on CD, but terrible live. I can vouch for that because I've seen them. They put on a hell of a show, I will add. But yeah, anyway, so on to Good Charlotte. Later in my 8th grade year, a friend of mine introduced me to a mix CD that had System of a Down and Papa Roach on it. I'm sure there was a bunch of other songs on it, but I only listened to 3 songs. I listened to Aerials, Chop Suey, both by System of a Down, and Last Resort by Papa Roach.
I knew it.
And that kind of got the ball rolling a little bit. I was like, wow, I've never really been into heavy music. I mean, I'd heard it. Like, I played video games like, I can't remember, it's like Monster Jam or something on 64.
Yeah.
And they either had Cemetery Gates or Raining Blood. I can't remember which one. But I know I'd heard both of those songs on old Nintendo 64 games. So like I already had a little bit of a taste of the metal I would eventually come to love. But I didn't understand it. It was over my head. So after the Papa Roach and System of a Down mix CD cadaver thing, caper.
Well, CDs are pretty much almost all cadavers now anyway.
Right.
And they're dead medium.
I was introduced to The Sickness by Disturbed. So once again, another Disturbed fan brought into the world of metal. I agree. Like I agree with Nick here. I don't really consider them metal. I did at the time. Like the Sickness era, I would definitely consider them metal. Believe kind of transition.
They're kind of new metal.
They're like a real good stepping stone to get people into metal.
They are.
Yes.
They really are, because it seems like Disturbed is almost like not quite heavy enough for metal, but a little too heavy at time.
Right.
To be just considered normal rock.
Yeah.
And I mean, and now they are really accepted into like what mainstream rock, because you hear them on the local rock station a lot.
Yes.
But it's funny that you mentioned video games, because that really broadened my horizons for metal, because as I said, it was pretty much Metallica, Megadeth, and Pantera. And then, but it didn't go that smoothly, because after I was like die-hard Metallica and I was looking for something else, wasn't really too sure what was what. Grand Theft Auto Vice City came out and had one of the best soundtracks ever for a video game, not just metal-wise.
Come on, feel the noise.
Come on, feel the noise. Hell yeah. But V-Rock, and I jammed V-Rock, and it had so many bands. It had Megadeth, it had was it Peace Cells, I believe it had.
I don't remember. The only song I remember off that soundtrack was "Come On, Feel the Noise."
Come on, okay, because so it had Megadeth with Peace Cells, and then it had like Twisted Sister for "I Want to Rock."
Oh yeah.
It had fucking Anthrax, Madhouse with Slayer, Rain and Blood. It had Priest with Got Another Thing Coming.
Okay, all of this is starting to sound familiar
It
at
had
the end of the game.
Iron Maiden, 2 Minutes to Midnight.
Nice.
And Ozzy Bark at the Moon. It had so many great tracks, especially for that time period, you know, from coming back from like kind of this older classic metal. And I just pretty much gravitated to almost all of it.
Yes.
Namely Megadeth. That Peace Cell song really fucking sold me on Megadeth. I was like, dude, they're badass. and he's political.
It took me a very long time to get into Megadeth. I was a big Metallica fan before Megadeth, and I was very against Megadeth, mainly because Dave Mustaine's vocals. I didn't like how terrible they were, but eventually they grew on me, and the music just always kicked ass. But,
from there, with all those different bands, that really did open up a lot of new possibilities. And it wasn't until that I really explored like Iron Maiden. Like a buddy of mine really fell in love with Iron Maiden. I fell in love with Megadeth, and we went on like this kind of little parallel tangent from Metallica because I got him into Metallica, and then so we went this way, and he goes, "I don't like Megadeth," and I said, Iron Maiden's pretty cool, but I went and bought albums from them. He went and bought albums from Iron Maiden, and he got like Power Slave and Number of the Beast and stuff like that. But it was then after that I found Pantera. And it wasn't because of any video game. It was because we were in a Sam Goody, if you remember that.
No.
You don't remember Sam Goody?
I know the name.
Sam Goody, no.
I
Okay.
may have been in one at one point, but I do know the name.
They've been sort of bought out and taken over by FYE.
Okay, yeah.
FYE was around back then, but Sam Goody was mostly music, and then they had like a separate movie store for some malls, but mine was like a 2-in-1. But we were in there and we saw a Pantera hat with like a big marijuana leaf on it, and he goes, "Yes, I want that." And then I'm like, "You don't even know what they play." He goes, "I don't care." And so it was that prompted us to check out some Pantera. And then, of course, it's like you type in Pantera into Google, you're going to come up with like their more popular songs and hits, like, Walk, Cemetery Gates, Cowboys from Hell. And I think it was 5 Minutes Alone that really got me into that damn band. It was like heavy, angry, and it just, for like a teenager going through that time, it's like thrash is angry. Pantera is like, you're close to kicking somebody's fucking ass sometimes.
You're punching the sidewalk.
I know. And so what's funny is that he bought the hat. I fell in love with the band because he never really did. And then unfortunately, like a year and a half later, that's when Dime died.
No shit.
Yes.
Wow. I got into Pantera. It was about a year or two into my journey into metal.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa!
I can't believe I didn't even put that together.
Oh, dude!
But, it was about a year and a half into my metalness that I discovered Pantera. I had heard the name, people had suggested to me, but I was like, no, I'm just gonna keep going, doing my own thing, and if I find it, I find it. Well, at 2006, VH1 had the month of May devoted to metal. And they had the VH1 Top 40 Metal Countdown. And it had 2 Pantera songs on there, Walk and Cowboys from Hell. And I was like, wow, I dig this. I got into a lot of metal because of that month, like old school metal.
Oh, yeah.
And I got into Slipknot because of that. I eventually delved into a lot heavier stuff like Lamb of God. Like now I listen to like brutal death metal, local stuff, Gorgasm. They're a local brutal death metal band they're not big here in the United States. They're big everywhere else though. They're a signed band, but from what I understand, they're not that big here. But they, like, last year they toured, I believe, I could be wrong, they toured Europe, and I know they toured Indonesia.
Cool.
They're huge over there.
And you mentioned, like, different genres, and I kind of want to move into that next because there are so many freaking different subgenres of this damn one genre of metal. And what's funny is that metal can be considered almost like a side genre of rock,
right?
Because that's where it's kind of birthed from. It's like what you consider the birthplace of metal, and I consider it to be Sabbath.
It's definitely Sabbath.
Some people might say that Zeppelin had a thing to do with that because they're metal in their own right in a different way. Like Sabbath is more, to me, that's more direct.
Yes.
Yes. So, but from there you have metal, you have thrash metal, you have power metal, death metal, black metal, white metal.
Final Fantasy metal.
Final Fantasy metal, apparently.
Found out about that one today.
We'll get to that later.
But we've got like so many different genres. So many, so it's just like, for me personally, it's like, I dig a lot of different metals. It's not really just the fact that I'm against one genre. It's like it's got to be the right band. I'm against in for bands like that I like. I'm not like biased to any sub genres or anything like that. But if I had to say like what I primarily listen to, it's probably thrash and power metal with a little bit of death metal thrown in, and even there's a couple bands that I like that are progressive death metal, which is like death metal mixed with like Pink Floyd shit. So and and that's very interesting because out of the three of us, I guarantee you we're gonna like some different shit with a little bit of crossover.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Nick, when you listen to like Silosis, which oddly enough you're really supporting right now.
That's right. I got the shirt on.
Yeah, right there. And that's why I brought it up because I listened to some Silosis today to really like sort of just get in the mindset to this podcast today. And so as I'm listening to the music, I'm like, they sound musically thrash. The vocals are borrowed from like death metal.
It's definitely a harder vocal style than your average thrash, but the instrumentals are just straight thrash. And when I first came on them, because I love thrash and I love the other type of metal, it's like, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Good joke, guys. But when I first found out about them, I was like, man, these guys are really a fusion of like these two types of metal that I love. I don't even know what you call it.
There's even like a little bit of a mixture of power metal in there that I heard. There's like, when I mean like power metal uses some synth and some orchestral, some keyboard stuff, and it's not overdone.
No, it's very light.
It's very light, but when I'm listening to it, I'm like, this sounds like that epic metal meets death metal,
right?
And it's a good marriage. It really is. Because
they list their influences of like Pantera and Metallica and all your old thrash and groove metal, but then they've also got newer influences too. And it's like, man, it's just a cool fusion.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite bands that I love, and you can argue are they metal or are they not? I'm like, there's these guys are metal, and that's Symphony X. They're not your typical metal. They're more like
symphonic metal.
Yes, of course. I mean, it's right there in the name.
Go in there with
I mean, but
genre.
They are like it. I would almost consider them like symphonic power metal because it's a lot of their stuff is like over the top and epic, especially like their like later release stuff. But it is like different marriages of different styles. Like there's another band that I like called Into Eternity, and they're like progressive death metal thrash. It's like it's got a bunch of different styles kind of mixed in there. And so I really like bands that do that because when you go like just find a single band and that they embody so many different styles.
Yeah. I mean, we're to the point in these days where bands they have so like you can pick and just pick and choose your influences. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, like at back in like 20 years ago, okay, you had Metallica, you had Slayer, you had Anthrax. And Black Sabbath.
And they're all like influenced by different acts that aren't necessarily metal.
Yeah, like Black Sabbath, like all those bands, they were like Deep Purple, Cream,
Thin Lizzy.
Oh yeah. Was Sabbath supposed to be a blues band at first?
A Sabbath originally was supposed to be either that band or it got born from a band that they were supposed to be a little bit more like Cream. So like blues. But then I think Ozzy wanted to be like the Beatles. He really wanted to embody like a newer style of Beatles, but it's kind of funny because of course they turned out like they did, and really made all like horror rock is really kind of what they are, and that's what they're really going for, especially for their first record. But I'm enamored with genres because I don't like the label stuff, but then again, when you're looking at metal, it's someone's asked you what's that band. Like and it's almost like you have to do that because there's no other way to word it.
Genres are a terrible thing when it comes to the elitists. Like you got people that's like, oh yeah, they're this genre, you can't hell with that. And
that's not metal.
But like if you're sitting here like it's like if you're describing a band, like okay, yeah, this what do they sound like? Oh, they sound like this, and this. They're this kind of metal. It's like okay, then that's where I believe genre. That's what separates the good genre-ing to bad genre-ing.
Right, yeah. No, and I totally agree with you because, as I said, you get like those people who say like, well, power metal is not metal. And I say, bullshit. It's born from, in a way, from thrash. Some of them.
It's an extreme form of rock.
It is. And then
it's definitely metal, right? It's like
Just metal is an extreme form of rock.
it's like like I can't remember who it was. A couple years ago, we were talking about metal bands, and I said Blind Guardian. He goes, "Are they really metal?" I'm like, "Okay, look."
Metal.
I'm like, "Yeah, they're folk metal." Okay. I'm like, "Do I really got to go to that level?" It's like, look, they're metal. It's like, who do they tour with? Do they go around touring with rock bands, or they tour with metal bands? No, they tour with metal bands.
Exactly.
So, but what's cool about that is that to kind of wrap up this sort of genre talk, when you more so over in Europe, when you go to like the big European festivals, like here, a lot of times you're going to get bands that are of the same cut, or maybe of the same subgenre. They'll tour together because it's like a natural fit. It's like, okay, you got Slipknot. Well, who wants to tour with Slipknot? It's like, well, okay, let's Lamb of God. They're different, but you can also like, okay, I can see why those two would tour together. But then over there with those big metal festivals, like everybody comes together. You're going to have a Whitesnake on the same bill as Slipknot.
Yep.
You're like, what the hell? But then everyone over there is like, yes.
Download festival or something.
Yeah, or like Vakken or something like that. It's really neat.
You know how much it pisses me off whenever like I'm scrolling through Facebook and one of the bands puts up on Facebook, it's like Slipknot and Lamb of God with Slayer and Cyanosis and Black Sabbath, and it's like, what in the fuck? Where is this? I'll go to wherever the fuck it is. And it's like Amsterdam. Shit.
Yeah.
Cool. That's speaking of that. Like Nick and I, one of our favorite bands is Parkway Drive.
Mm-hmm.
They rarely ever tour the United States. They always do Europe. They're from Australia, so they tour the hell out of Australia.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
But never here. And like Silosis, Europe, they haven't been here in like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, fuck, man. That's what sucks about living in the States and being a metal fan.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they are a big name band,
Yeah.
they're not going to come here as often. One of my favorite bands of all time, they're like a marriage of other bands, Iced Earth. You look around my game room, you're going to find Iced Earth swag albums.
Iced Earth.
I absolutely love this band. To me, they're like a marriage between Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
They have stuff from all three of those bands, but they merged that to make their own kind of sound. They're not really big here, like compared.
Yeah.
Just like some of the other bands that you've talked about. So they do tour here. They make a point to tour the States, but it's always like House of Blues, or it's like a club. It's never like a small arena. And so almost every time they've toured here ever since 2008, I've gone to see them because I feel like number one, since I'm a huge fan of that band, it's like I have to go support them. Even if I'm going to go see a set that is pretty similar to what I saw last year, it's like I want this band to tour more. I want them to be a little bit more successful. It's almost like I have a loyalty.
Yes.
And to those smaller bands, and Iced Earth isn't small by any means. They're a majorly signed act. But in America, you can also compare them to like anybody else who also tour the club scenes, because unless you are a major multi-million-dollar, selling artist or close to, or unless you can also open for them, you're going to play the smaller circuits. You're not going to play the arenas, which that's more fit for Metallica, Iron Maiden, Slipknot.
I would rather see it in a club anyways. It's more intimate.
It's
a lot better.
I agree with you, yeah, but it just, when you think about those bands, it really kind of sucks because they know where the money is. They're going to go to Europe first.
Yep.
And so we are kind of getting robbed, because imagine if we had shows like that here. That would just be so cool. But then again, there's a reason why they don't have those shows here. Because
it's just not supported enough here in the States.
No.
And that's what, it is more intimate, and it's like cool to go to those shows or whatever, but you do want your band to be big, and you want them to be successful, and that way they can continue to make their content and all that. And if they're not really successful in the States, this is the biggest market, it kind of sucks.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Sometimes you get lucky enough to be able to be like an Iced Earth, where they're big enough to where when they go to a club, they're going to do good numbers. So they know their business and they know their cities. So they're pretty much going to go to the same cities. It's like I want them to go to Indy really bad, because primarily they're an Indiana band. That's where the main guy is from here. Another their lead guitar Torres is also from here, and so it's like, yeah, I mean that's kind of cool, but nobody else is going to give a flying fuck about that. So if they could try to go to Indy, but they're going to Chicago.
Yeah,
they know for damn sure they're going to get a damn good crowd at Chicago, and then they're just going to skip right over us and go over to Ohio, go over to Columbus, or Cincinnati, so.
Or
Cleveland. Fucking Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Been there a few times.
Yeah.
I've been there once.
But so moving on from that, I really wanted to kind of talk about what are some of your all-time favorite records, albums?
This is a hard one.
It is.
We were talking about it on the way up.
Yeah.
This is hard.
All-time favorites. Well, going back to Disturbed, Believe is probably one of my favorite Disturbed record. It shaped a lot of my musical taste.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was a very emotionally evocative record. And that's one thing that I look for in music, stuff that brings stuff out of you, makes you feel something. It's that chilling feeling you get, makes your hair stand up on your arm. And that album did that a lot for me. That's any album that does that for me. It's definitely up there.
I'd have to say Master of Puppets.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to come up with a nice, concise list for you when you told me to think of it. And I was listening last night and trying to go through with different bands and figure out what my favorite album from them was. Master is my favorite from Metallica. I mean, it's not to say that the other ones aren't.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Damn near just as good, but Master of Puppets is awesome. Just awesome. Orion is probably my favorite song, ever. So.
Oh yeah, man. I have to agree with you on Master. Probably, and again, going through their entire catalog. I mean, you could. I probably have to say Black Album because that's the album that got me into them. But I also have a very strong, sentiment with And Justice for All.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the sheer lack of bass on that record, which really hits me right in the heart, man. But man.
Me.
For me to pick my favorite albums, you'd almost have to go by artist. Name a band, I'll tell you my favorite album by them.
I mean, but for me, just for example, is if I said, "What's your favorite metal album of all time?" and I'm probably going to tell you right off the top of my head, would be Vulgar Display Power.
That's a good one.
I absolutely love that record from beginning to end. If I had to say another one, I said it. Black Album. It's just if you said Quick Fire, that's what I'm going to say. Rust in Peace from Megadeth would be another one that I would say. Any one of these is probably just going to be randomly okay, Rust in Peace.
I tried thinking all night last night and deciding between two albums from one band on which I was going to say is my favorite, and I can't. And that is Iowa and Slipknot, the self-titled first one. I mean, those are the first two albums from Slipknot, and they blow my mind how good they are. I honestly can't tell you which one's better. I mean, right now I guess I'm leaning more Slipknot, but Iowa's.
Oh yeah,
Iowa.
Of course. I mean, I have that same thing. My favorite band, Iced Earth, is that Something Wicked This Way Comes, or is it Dystopia? It can go either way. I mean, it really does, and it's going to change on what day you ask me.
Oh yeah.
And so, there's a lot of that with me. But I would have to say that maybe those are my top ones. If I had to say another one, I'm probably going to say Power Slave from Iron Maiden.
Power Slave. Yeah.
I absolutely love Power Slave.
Man, there's so many that come to me at once. Dormant Heart, Silosis, came out this year. And I was scared because, the Grey Chapters came out last year and I wasn't impressed. And so...
New Slipknot album?
Yeah. So when New Silosis was coming out and the last one, Monolith, wasn't as good. Edge of Earth was amazing, and that's my favorite. And then Dormant Heart came out, and I was like, holy shit. They've actually found what they do.
It's a very solid record.
It's awesome.
Given, I've never listened to Silosis before Dormant Heart, and it's a solid record. I really enjoyed it.
They put together... That's where all the influences that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That's when they just figured out how to mix them all together as one, because it's thrashy as hell at one point and groovy, and then there's even like punk elements to it.
Yeah.
It's got the atmospheric sounds and stuff. That's a great record.
There's been a lot of great records coming out recently. Silosis, 36 Crazy Fist.
Tom and
Trauma.
Trauma, yeah.
The All That Remains just came out with a new album, although most will probably argue that it's not that great because it's not the Fall of Ideals.
Fall of Ideals was on my list originally.
It's on my list. It's definitely on my list. Parkway Drive, Deep Blue.
Deep Blue. I thought you were going to go with Atlas.
I could, but Deep Blue is what really got me into them.
Deep Blue is amazing.
My favorite Pantera album, Reinventing the Steel.
Hell yes.
I originally it was Vulgar Display of Power, but after I just at that point in time I had never really given Reinventing the Steel a real listen. So when I got my job at Subaru, I started expanding my CD collection. Actually, I starting my CD collection, and one of the things I wanted to do is complete my Pantera collection, and that involved getting Reinventing the Steel. I listened to it; it was badass. Yesterday Don't Mean Shit is my favorite song on that album.
Dude, I meant Reinventing Still. I almost just said the title of the song. That album definitely has its own sound. It has a different...
Yes.
I can't really think of a word to describe it because it does sound... It's not to just say that, steel, but to me, in a way, it's almost like you're like grinding it, like steel and like metal together. It's like some of the sounds that Dime came up with on that record definitely sound really neat, and that record stands by itself. It's like, of course, there's a natural evolution with Pantera with how they go, but then you get to that one, it sounds so different.
Yeah.
But
coming off of the Great Southern Trendkill,
yes,
is very different.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's great. I love Great Southern Trendkill. It might be my favorite too. That are Vulgar Display of Power. Southern
Trendkill is probably my least favorite.
I
think it's just because you can feel that disconnect between the Abbott brothers and Phil Anselmo, because Phil, he recorded vocals in New Orleans while everybody else recorded elsewhere. I think in Dime's home. But yeah, you could just feel the disconnect. It wasn't the brotherhood wasn't there. The passion wasn't there. The passion was there with Dime. You can hear it. The Flood solo, absolutely amazing. It's my favorite solo of all time. The outro to that song, just absolutely beautiful. I found a 10-hour loop of that song, and I'll just listen to it. I'll listen to that loop of the outro of that song while I sleep. It's amazing. It soothes me.
As a metal guy who's kind of like very musically diverse now, I can go from listening to metal to like weird 80s pop shit. Like when you're driving a car now. It's so weird. I'm like ADD with what my music tastes are. But a few years ago, kind of like you, I just said I'm going to start expanding my music collection, which is funny because I don't really showcase my music collection other than my Iced Earth collection. What was that? So I went to the music store, FYE, and I just went through because their metal section, and I'm like, you know what? I haven't heard anything from this band in years, and I want to check it out. And that band was Accept.
Yeah.
Who's for those who don't know, they're the guys that in the 80s, I almost want to call them a one-hit wonder because they had like one sort of hit with Balls of the Wall. But they had an album called Blood of the Nations, and that's when I picked up. And holy shit, that album's badass. They have a new lead singer. It's not the same guy as before. And it is just like almost the epitome of power metal. It's metal with a little bit more of a not quite thrash. It's kind of a weird sort of vibe. But then the other record I got around the same time was the Anthrax record, Worship Music. And I've never been big into Anthrax, but that record's badass.
Did we listen to that on the way up to go see Black Sabbath?
We did.
I remember listening to it, and I was sound hounding it the whole time. I'm like, this shit's awesome. What is this? Oh, it's Anthrax. Holy shit. This is awesome.
I know. See,
I was jamming it.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah, dude.
I wasn't expecting heavy from Anthrax. They're one of the big four, but I've never considered Anthrax heavy.
It gave them a different sound, a different vibe. And I think both of those bands have newer records out, and I haven't checked them out because I've sort of fallen off with discovering new stuff, mainly because of Spotify.
Yeah.
Which has become like the haven for me for like of course, it's a blessing and a curse because I'll just get so used to what I'm listening to that I won't discover anything new because I'll just forget that I can search. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm searching, I'll be like finding all this different stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll just go through this big thing at once.
It's funny you mentioned how you access music, how you find new music. Like the way I find new music, like I just follow the bands that I'm interested in already. And then, I used to, like, my old roommate, he would just be like, hey, check this band out. And now like, I either just follow the band, like, I find out about new music from the bands I already love via the bands themselves on Facebook. And then, but I also just find out new music through local. I've discovered so much great local music, and not exactly local, but regional music. And it's been great this last year. I've been, my eyes and ears have been opened up. So many great bands around here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned local scene, and you're really heavy into the local
Yes.
scene. You're a big supporter of it. I remember me and my absent co-host Nate. We were in a band together. And our band was like kind of derivative. It was very inspirational from like Metallica and like Iron Maiden and stuff like that, and with a little bit of an alternative rock edge to it. So it wasn't straight metal, but one thing that we noticed is that there was a very big lack of support for the local music scene in our area. Yeah. So we had to like go out. We had to go out and get out of that. And unfortunately, with a band where, you know, at least me at the time, I lived quite a bit of ways away. And with our, you know, with my work schedule, their work schedule, it was something that was kind of hard to make sure. Oh, can you make this show date? 45 minutes away from our normal player, you know, our normal town, and then we had to try to make sure that was going to be possible. But I'm very happy that you are so into the local scene.
Oh yeah,
because that's something that was so absent from my experience from being in a band.
Oh yeah, I love my local scene, the Lafayette metal scene. It's great. A little back history there from my entry into it. From what I understand, like it started out like little venues downtown. Like there was a place called the Skylight Cafe. They always played a lot of shows, a lot of hardcore shows. My friend's band Narrow House played there. They were a local thrash metal band, now deceased.
What's funny, to interject real quick, my wife, right before I met her, used to go to like those kind of hardcore shows at the Skylight.
Oh, boy.
That's how I know about the Skylight, is that she used to tell me about these bands that she would go see there.
Oh god. Well, after the Skylight shut down, like there was like a couple other venues that would play shows and stuff, but we kind of transitioned into a house scene, like, where we would just play basement shows or house shows, and the Narrow House became a house. The band had a house. Apologize. They had a house and they called it the Narrow House, obviously. And then from there, they got out of that house and then it moved to this other house of another band called Theophagy. They were a prog death metal band. And they called that the Suicide Dungeon because apparently somebody hung themselves in the basement. Great name, huh? So there was like a lot of great shows there. Eventually it moved over to this place called the Hilltop Fortress, another place rented out by some members of Narrow House. And then after their lease ran up, they had a good 2-year run there, but after their lease ran up, my buddy Nick Maxon, he took up arms and started the Doom Room out of his house. And since the Doom Room, everything's really picked up. Like he's unified. Like for a while, the metal scene was in kind of disarray. I mean, there's still a couple places like Jerry Lee's Pub downtown. They would play the local showcase every month, the Hard and Heavy showcase, and which the Doom Room has recently picked up. Like we're still playing the show. The Doom Room is still playing shows down at Jerry Lee's for the Hard and Heavy. Yeah, he picked up where everybody else left off, and it just skyrocketed. Like everything, like he's pulling in bands from all over the country. Sometimes internationally. Yeah.
There was a band that came up from Brazil?
Brazil, South America, Living Garden. Great guys. We put them up in the house for a couple days. They're very cool dudes. They originally played a show at the Suicide Dungeon with another band from England called Man of Kin. I don't believe they're a band anymore, but I'm not. I think that's what they were telling me last time when they came up again. But Living Garden, yeah, they were saying that they posted on their Facebook that they were looking for places to play, and I was like, I immediately commented on it. I was like, you need to hit up Nick Maxon at the Doom Room. Sure enough, they did. Nick, he's asking people. He's like, "Hey, Living Garden, are they good?" And everybody's like, "Get them, book them now." So
that is so neat, though. That like the local scene is so healthy, healthy enough to support international acts to come in and be showcased. I think that's fantastic.
Oh yeah, and the great thing about it is like the Doom Room, they're $5 shows. Mm-hmm. It's all for $5 to get in the show, and you have an amazing time. Like, nobody's a douchebag. Everybody's very respectful of the house, very respectful of each other. It's a brotherhood. Like, our scene is very unique in that aspect, I think. Like, other scenes I've seen, shut up. Other scenes that I have witnessed, they're not quite as brotherly. Like,
oh, trust me. You know, yeah, from my experiences as a band is like you would make bonds and connections with certain bands, but
business.
It pretty much it's like there were only a few bands that I really felt like that we were sort of cohesive. Yeah. You know, that we put on shows and then we would invite them, they would invite us, and we actually kind of hung out together at those shows and we got along great. But there are some other bands that definitely, you know, I definitely played with a band, and I can't even remember the name at this point, but I just kind of felt disconnected from them. It's like we were hanging out, but it's almost like because we were the opening act, so like it's almost like, you know, he was not he. I say he because he was like the lead singer. I kind of felt like he was hanging out with us merely because it was, oh, these guys are opening for us. Yeah. I think I got to show these guys a little bit of time, and I definitely didn't feel like I was like a part of it all. Like I kind of felt like I was, you're over here, we're here, come over here. And then you'll be kind of the butt of the joke while we talk. Mm-hmm. You know, I definitely felt that way. But I'm very happy to hear that the local scene in Lafayette is really cool.
It's thriving. We're doing a lot of great things. Like the Doom Room itself, it's kind of transcended the basement. It's not like all these other houses it just stayed with the house. Mm-hmm. Like, this place, like we're not even in the original Doom Room anymore. We're in a new house, a new location, but that's the first time the name has actually stuck onto another house. And on top of that,
yeah, it's almost branding.
Yeah, it is. It's a brand because now the Hard and Heavy is the Doom Room presents the Hard and Heavy at Jerry Lee's. Nick's been given booking rights for the Lafayette Theater. He books shows at the Lafayette Theater now, and that's amazing because they just put in a new sound system for all of this to happen, and we put on great shows. And what. Speaking of genres again, he's like you were talking about how some bands try to get on the same bill as other bands that are very similar to them. Nick is doing this thing where he is booking several different bands.
That's neat.
And
I like that.
I mean, like a couple weeks ago, we had at the Lafayette Theater, we had a band called Bizarre Noir. They were a very weird band. They were good. They were awesome. They were awesome. And then followed by them was I think We Be Nick's band played. They're kind of progressive death metal with, I don't know, they're just weepy. And following them, the headlining act was a band called Lawbringer, and they're very heavy, very like just every band had its own spot and in respect to its own genre.
Yeah, see, that's really neat. We played a couple of shows that definitely had that kind of vibe, where you know you had like more of a punk metal type band, and then you had a band that was actually made up, and they were really into like the hair metal style. Yeah. They weren't totally glam, but they definitely dressed like damn Yankees or something like that. And they went out and they rocked it. They killed it. They were just a really good band. And then you had you had us, and it was more of like a straightforward rock metal. You know, you with that kind of thing. And then you get after us, you get like a more of a death metal thing. It's like we're all hanging out together. It's like we are all different, but we're unified.
Oh yeah, man. Hearing all this makes me miss the metal scene back up in the region.
Region.
You know, up there, being so close to Chicago and stuff, it's all rap. And like I said, like they had to close down the radio station because nobody was listening to rock anymore. So it was a very small scene. It wasn't as large. And we didn't have anywhere like designated we could go, but it was just like, hey, there's a barn over here that no one's using.
Yeah.
We got permission to use it tonight, and then, well, we were never invited back. Or, hey, there's an American Legion.
Mm-hmm.
We'll trash the place, and we'll never get invited back. We weren't quite as respectful, but we did have all the different genres and, well, you know, just such a variety. And it was always cool because, you know, I was a shitty bass player with a really shitty band. And so everybody knew us, though. We were friends with everybody. So we had to go to other bands' practice instead of going to our own. And because of that, I got into all these shows for free, you know. Everybody was just a friend with me and all the rest of the guys. And we'd get, you know, the little free pass written on our hands so that they could say that, yeah, these guys are allowed wherever. VIP with a big penis and a skull, man. Metal.
Hell yeah.
So I definitely miss it, man. It was awesome, and unfortunately, all those bands are gone.
Yeah.
There were some really good ones that had potential. One of my friends, they had a ska band for a while, actually. Right as the whole metal scene kind of started dissolving, they came up with the ska scene. And one of the old drummer buddies of mine, who was like a straight death metal guy, was drumming for a ska band, and
Awesome.
it's just all these different people. They just came together because it was like, there's no more bands, so what do we do? We've got a trumpet.
We've had a couple good bands from Chicago come through here, most notably Chicago-based bands Psychopathic Days and Era Cobra.
Okay, I actually heard of Eric.
Era Cobra, they're like a mix between like black metal and Kiss. And it is amazing.
Do they wear makeup?
Yes, they do. I don't think as much as Kiss, but they definitely have a get up. It's great. Psychopathic Days, they're more along the lines of groove metal, Lamb of God, Pantera style. Great stuff. Speaking of local music, you want to play some Weed Bee, Rum Gun Salute?
Oh yeah, dude, I was about ready to bring that up. You know, we've been kind of riffing on this local scene, and you mentioned that you want to bring some tracks on to kind of showcase here on the podcast for some local stuff. So why don't you tell us about this track?
This is Weed Bee's basically party song. It's their party anthem. It's called Rum Gun Salute, and basically, I don't know the full story behind it, but basically Nick, he's the singer, Nick Maxon, and he has this gun that he fills up with alcohol. Lots of alcohol. And it's called the Rum Gun.
Mm-hmm.
And while they sing this song, he just runs around on stage shooting people in the face with it, hopefully getting it into their mouths. Sometimes other people, such as Van Smith from Lucifist, get a hold of the gun and shoots people in the eye with it, and that is not so fun. Speaking from experience, a fun little story. They one time, I'm pretty sure it was the Fifth Quarter Lounge in Indianapolis. Weed Bee played a set there, and other members of the band decided to have their own rum guns, so they got these little pea shooters. And Colby, the rhythm guitarist, he pulls his out. He points it directly at me, and I get so excited. I'm like, "Yeah, shoot me!" And he shoots me, and it wasn't so fun because it went directly into my eye. I'm like, "Never again, Colby. Never again."
All right.
But anyways, so Rum Gun Salute. This is a fun song, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
All right, let's check that out.
enough of the music. Let me make the solo again!
Alright guys, so that was Rum Gun Salute by Weed B. And so that definitely had that vibe of what I remember from being a small local band where it's very
sound.
very raw.
Not overly produced and stuff. It's definitely nostalgic to hear.
Yes. Oh yes. As we were listening to it, it brought me right back to that time and era where it was really DIY.
Oh yeah, it's a certain sound that you can. It's almost like you can't put your finger on what makes it. But you know, if you were ever a part of that, you know that sound, you know that raw feeling. You know what it kind of reminds me of is it's like whenever I go and listen to "Don't Close Your Eyes."
Oh, Don't Close Your Eyes.
EP from Parkway. I always get that feel. It's almost like I get a chill. It's like, man, I miss it so much. That's awesome.
You know, one thing that hearing that really took me back to also was like going to these small shows and seeing all their different like demos or just different swag that they had, you know, whether it be stickers or, you know, maybe they'd be lucky enough to have some t-shirts if they had them made, but mostly the ones I remember are just being like, you know, either self-made CDs or samplers pretty much in like an envelope saying, here, check this out for like $1 or something. You know, that really took me back. And I remember going, you know, a lot of those shows I was actually a part of. So it was very different for me because I really didn't actually go out and venture out too much into going to these concerts, like these local shows, because, you know, 9 times out of 10 I was almost a part of them in some way. So it's like I was hanging out either before or after, but it was always just in a different way. It's like sometimes now if I ever go to a show, which is very rarely now anymore, but I feel so odd because I feel like I should be helping tear down.
Right.
You know, it's like when I went and saw Draxus, of course they've continued on after I left, but I went and saw them about a year after I left, and they invited me on stage. We played a song, and after we were done, I instantly started packing up shit and helped them tear down. It was just, I mean, one, I was happy to help, but two, it was just so natural to get right back into that. But what are like some of your favorite memories from going to concerts? It doesn't have to be, you know, big level. They can be smaller as well. But like, so what are some of your memories?
Man, one time we had a concert at an American Legion, and I can remember this band. They were getting into it, and the singer he was just putting on a show, you know, and a little American Legion concert as much as you can work a stage, you know. And I remember there was a bar because, you know, obviously it's an American Legion. There's other shit going on.
Yeah.
This old guy comes out and he comes up and he stops the show and he grabs the mic and he's like, "Hey, all you little fucking kids out here, you guys want to beat the shit out of each other? That's fucked up. You can't do that in here, okay? You guys want to fucking fight somebody? Why don't you take it outside and I'll take any of you little motherfuckers?" And I'm like, God damn, guy, you know? The fucking guy gives the mic back to the singer, and the singer stands up on a chair and he's like, "Does anybody want to fight that guy?" And the whole crowd went fucking nuts, just started screaming. And he jumped off the chair and started singing again. They jumped right back in the song, and we all started moshing again. And I was like, that was metal as fuck.
As I said, I went and saw Nate with Draxus and all the other guys about a year after I left. And I mentioned earlier about how, like, the local scene, you know, you'd have a lot of friends that go and a lot of other people, like, who maybe you know you're not friends with, but you know everybody. And you just wanted so bad for people to get into it and come up to the stage. But we were also playing in our normal stomping grounds was our local American Legion, but this show was happening at the VFW, and there's a lot of room. And they had tables kind of sort of like the back wall, and people were sitting.
Isn't that the worst?
And so...
Isn't that the worst? Like, people sitting out in the back, there's like this huge area right in front of the stage, but like, it's the crowd mentality. Like, one person doesn't want to go up there and be all alone.
Exactly. So, I'm
usually that guy that's all alone up there.
Nate was trying to be, the front man. Come on, guys, get in. A couple guys would go up there. Yeah, they kind of shove each other like a two-person mosh pit. Yeah. And I was up there with another guy I went to high school with, and it was, we were trying to get people into it. People didn't want to go up there and be pushed, I guess. They just weren't that kind of mosh kind of crowd. And I get it. Yeah. Not everybody's like that. But I was watching them, and I remember the feeling. As I said earlier, it was hard for me to go to a show and just feel like I am out here now. I'm not up there, and I'm like, mm-mm. So I go up to the other guy's name is Brad. I said, hey, come over here. He goes, what? I'm like, grab this table, because everybody was sitting on tables. So we grabbed this table, dragged it right in front of the stage, and said, come on. We all sat on the table right in front of the stage. And then to the point where the table broke and fell down because there's too many people on it. But that was something after I was in the band that just kind of, when you were talking about kind of like the just kind of random happenings, is like I really wanted to get people into this show, and it just kind of seemed like it was about maybe halfway through the set. It started off strong, and then it kind of started like going kind of like not lame because the show was good, but the audience kind of got lame. I'm like, it's almost like they need to be entertained up there and out here, and it was very like disappointing in a way, but it was like I got to do something. I can't let them go through this because I know I can try to do something creative.
Oh man, I know the feeling of disappointment. Last year for the very first show that they did at the Lafayette Theater, Weed B was performing, and about an hour before everything started, Nick calls me up, and he knows that I have this Deadpool costume. And so he's like, hey, dude, do you still have your Deadpool costume? I'm like, yeah. Do you want to get up on stage with it and just run around and rile everybody up and stuff? I was like, and like be a douchebag to us and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that. No problem. So the thing about this Deadpool costume is the spots where you look through, they're white. It's white cloth or white spandex, or something like that. If any light is shining on or near that, you're blind. You cannot see at all. And they're expecting me to go on stage where there's a bunch of lights and like shining in every direction, and it's a nightmare. So that he told me, he's like, all right, here's where I want you to go on. Here, like, this is exact. Like, when I say this during this part of the song, I want you to run on stage and like fuck with us and throw up the metal horns and like have a good time and run out in the crowd and get everybody going, get everybody like moshing and stuff. So I was like, okay. So I go backstage, get my Deadpool costume, throw on some shorts and my douchebag shirt, and just add to the get-up. I threw on my Weed Bee shirt because it was for a Weed Bee show. So I'm sitting on the side of the stage, and then out of nowhere, here comes my part. Like he says, the line was, and the song was, "Pop that pussy." And at that point, I was supposed to run on stage and jump out, which I did, and I could not see anything. So I flipped the drummer off, threw up the metal horns a couple times, like kind of like I was really clumsy. It sucked. I was tripping over shit. I think I accidentally hit the lead guitarist, like the neck of his guitar. I think I actually grabbed it by instinct of trying to find something to grab and hold on to. And at that point, like, I had already ruined it, so Nick just literally tried to shove me off the stage, there was like a good, I think, 3 or 4 foot drop from the stage to the floor. And I was like, nope. So he just tried shoving me off the stage. I luckily held myself back and then got down on my own, where I then proceeded to just stand in the crowd as Deadpool.
Oh man, I went to a show up near Chicago, and I'm trying to remember the exact name. Mokina.
Doesn't sound familiar.
But they had a little club up there called the Pearl Room. It's no longer open.
I know the Pearl Room.
Pearl Room. I went and saw Symphony X there, and then 2 weeks later I saw Iced Earth there for the first time. It was Matt Barlow's first show back with the band, and they used to have a festival. I don't know if it's still up. I haven't heard of it in a long time, called Chicago Power Fest, and they would bring in some smaller bands and try to get one headliner a night. It was usually like a 2-night thing. And Iced Earth headlined the first night, and Testament headlined the second night. So I only got tickets for Iced Earth. I love Testament, but it just money-wise, and we just couldn't swing it because we didn't have anywhere to stay. We're just going to go see Iced Earth. So what they proceeded to do was give us, I want to say, 4 bands before Iced Earth, and every single one of them was almost complete shit. And that's no disrespect to those guys, but they sucked. I mean, it was just...
It happens.
And, well, see, the thing is that it wasn't just that, the music wasn't that great. The crowd was dead for them.
Yeah, and that can really bring a band down. I've been up there on stage with a dead crowd, and it's terrible.
I mean, the weird thing is that I knew, okay, this place is packed. For Symphony X, good crowd. This place, to the wall. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, Iced Earth is a club band for the States. But this show, I talked to people from that show that came over from Washington State just to be here for the show. I saw a guy there from freaking Argentina.
Holy shit.
Flew into Chicago from Argentina to see the show. It meant that much to him. But I just remember, the first band. In fact, you know what's funny? I actually have the Chicago Power Fest pamphlet right here. So I could actually tell you the name of some of these bands. But I don't know who the freaking first band was out of all these bands. Now that I look at it, I realize I can't even tell you because there's no actual list of what order they went on in. But it was a heavier band. I almost want to say kind of like a grindcore. And, lots of breakdowns. And the lead singer, I want to liken him to a chimp tossing poo.
Yeah, that about sums up grindcore right there.
I mean, he was throwing himself all around throwing his hands up in the air. It looked like a monkey prancing around and doing nothing but growling into the mic. And the crowd was there's 2 people in the crowd going, yeah! And there's people were just going, uh-huh. And then that guy was out. He was trying to get people into it. There was a little divider between the crowd and the stage, maybe 2 foot, 3 foot, enough for security guys to stand. And he was just kind of hovering over, and he went to go step back, and he tripped over the monitor. So he did a backflip, he went with it, but it made the rest of that dead. The other bands, they were just really flat. It was just some of them had, there was one band, and I actually do know which one these was if I find the name. Epicurean. They were good, but they were not the right band for that crowd. They were more of a progressive style. And I was probably one of 3 people in that entire place going, these guys aren't bad. These guys are pretty good. But everyone else was just Iced Earth! And it was funny because in between the bands, they would play just music for the set teardown. And that music got bigger reactions than these bands. Bad or not. I heard, and I later read somewhere, and this is just from somebody else posting this online, that small club had about 5,000 people in it. Breaking fire codes. And they're no longer open. Maybe that's why.
Probably.
But, I mean, I know the place was freaking packed. It took us a long time to get out of there. But what they would play, I remember people moshing just like Cowboys from Hell and Battery, and then hearing, if this was true, and close to 5,000 people, all of them singing Rainbow in the Dark.
Oh, yes.
Oh man.
And this is before Ronnie died. And I'm just It was an experience because I went there to see my favorite band. None of these other guys, no offense to them, but I assume there was about 4,000 other people there to see Iced Earth.
Yeah.
And they made that very apparent. I'm not even going to say the last name of the band because I know which one it was. Because they don't even deserve the publicity. Because the crowd, these guys were another sort of a grindcore type band. But each song sounded the same. I went from like a 3-song period where it's like, I looked at Nate, he actually went with me, and I went, have they played another song? He goes, yeah, 2 more. I'm like, you're kidding me.
I'm glad your ears are tuned to this.
No. I'm like, I've never felt depressed at a show before, but I started to feel, because everything was like open E. You know,
Fuck yeah, man. All breakdowns.
And then the lead singer, weird as it can be, he was playing barefoot.
Well, that's awesome.
He was, he wasn't playing, he was singing, but he was like running around in leather pants and barefoot, growling at the crowd. And then, at this point, by the 4th band that went up, actually it was 5. It was 5 bands. Yeah. Okay, so these guys were the 5th band, Iced Earth was the closer. People were like, I want some Iced Earth. So you had a couple hecklers in the crowd trying to start shit, Get off the stage! He goes, shut the fuck up! And that entire room turned on him.
Oh.
Boy. He goes, you guys are stuck with us whether you like it or not for 20 more minutes. Okay, maybe it was like 10 minutes. Because I think they got about 25 minutes to play. But it was that they started chanting during their songs for Iced Earth.
Yeah.
Iced motherfucking Earth. Barlow. They started chanting Barlow. I have never seen a situation quite like that. I mean, to me, I understand as a band, you feel like the crowd's not respecting you. But it's like, even if, because it was only just a couple of guys, a couple of douchebags that were being disrespectful,
I want to talk about that.
Go ahead.
That metal or etiquette at a show per se.
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of like the scene itself, like when you go to a show, you're not only representing yourself as a human being, you're representing especially if you're going out of town.
Yeah.
Like to a different scene, like say the indie scene, or I think we went to Anderson, Indiana for a show, or Fort Wayne, a place called the Berlin pub. I think it's called something different now, but you're not only representing yourself, you're representing your local scene. You're representing the bands that you're there to see.
Yeah.
And so you got to conduct yourself in a way that it's going to make people like your scene, like make people think, oh, there's some cool people down in Lafayette, Indiana, or Frankfort, Indiana, or they're that We Be band. They got some cool fans. I mean, we should probably listen to them. Like, we can play some shows down there with them, and their fans will be cool. Like that.
See,
like that.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, like what I'm thinking is that like even if you have a bad show, the crowd's kind of dead, and it happens to every band.
Just play the show.
You play the show. You're professional.
Yes.
If people are heckling you, you either ignore it, or you let that feed you to try and make you try harder. Mm-hmm. I mean, me personally, being in a band, I never got heckled.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been some dull shows that we played, but we never really got heckled. If it was heckling, it was like a few of our friends, so you guys suck.
Exactly. That's how it is down here.
And it just there's definitely a professionalism.
Play the one song.
Freebird.
And it's totally like. Surprisingly, there's been no Freebirds except for.
You've got to yell Freebird out at every concert.
Stairway.
Or Stairway.
Surprisingly, there hasn't been any Freebird until I brought one of my friends from Delphi to the show. And he's like, play Freebird! And I'm like, I just facepalm. Like, damn it, we've done so good these past so many years with no Freebird, and then it happens.
It's something that has to happen at every venue.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has to yell, play Freebird. Or just Freebird. It just happens.
One of my coolest concert memories, and this is a bigger concert. This was at May Day 2006 down in Indy, and it was headlined by Stained. And they're a great band live. They're not necessarily they were a new metal, of course, but they put on a fantastic show.
Yeah, I saw them a couple years ago.
And
2012.
one of the coolest, we're enjoying the show as normal, but then they bring on Aaron's guitar tech, and he used to be Dime's guitar tech, and they played
This Love.
They played This Love.
Yeah,
That's
I
on
wasn't
YouTube.
there, but I know about this.
That's on YouTube. It was awesome because I'm getting chills thinking about it because you had a crowd that was already into Stained, already getting good reactions. Of course, that's at the Klipsch or Deer Creek.
At the time, yeah, it was probably Deer Creek.
Or I think it was Verizon.
Oh, okay.
Or whatever.
It was Verizon when I started going.
All right, but so it's an outdoor venue, and it was a festival, so or made a festival. It's sort of, I guess, what you would consider a festival.
Yeah.
Bunch of bands. And so you had a good crowd, and it woke that crowd up.
Oh, I bet.
I mean,
anytime you play Pantera, the crowd.
it was so cool. It was so cool because obviously this is 2006. Dime died in 2004, and obviously Pantera hadn't toured since 2001.
I think it was 2002, 2001, 2002.
It was after 9/11 because I want to say
they stopped because of 9/11, I believe.
and then they never started back up again. So that was 2001.
Yep.
So, but this crowd just woke up and chanted right along with it, and that was, I've seen Iron Maiden there. That was fantastic. Black Sabbath for their last album that came out.
Yep.
That was awesome. That was when they announced that they were going to be playing. I said, "We are going."
Yep.
Of course, me and Silent Rob went.
I went there. I was there with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. That's right. That's right.
The only difference is you guys got pavilion seats and didn't tell me, so I was stuck in the lawn all by myself.
Well, see, I wanted to say that originally me and him were going, and then I think he may have said something to you.
Yeah.
You guys talked about it separately.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that you were even going with us at first. I think he said, "Yeah, Blaine's going." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
I just jumped on last second because I was like, that's cool.
And then he's like, "No, he's riding with us." I'm like, "Oh."
Did I tell you? Oh man, in the lawn, that was an experience.
Was it?
Because I was towards the front of the lawn,
Mhm.
a couple bodies behind the very, very front of the lawn, and during Black Sabbath's show, I looked down and there's a man laying down on the very, very front edge of the lawn, receiving fellatio. And people were just standing around cheering him on, yeah. I'm like, this is awesome, but where the fuck's security? What the fuck? This never happens.
Security was minding their own fucking business because that's a life moment right there. You received
Amen.
head while listening
Amen.
to Black Sabbath live.
I will say, Geezer Butler kicked ass that shit.
Yes, he did.
He was ripping.
Yes, he did.
Tony Iommi too.
Yeah. Oh, and they were all great.
Oh, yeah.
And there was even a pretty lengthy drum solo as well.
Yeah.
But
Jesus.
Yeah.
The guy looked like Jesus. He had a big old gong behind him. It was great.
Oh man.
I can't remember who he was or what bands he played for.
I'd have to look it up. I want to say that he's played for Ozzy or something maybe before.
I know. A couple days later, I ended up looking it up. And
Did you?
I don't remember any of it.
The coolest thing about the last two shows I mentioned about Maiden and Sabbath is that Maiden packed that place just as much, and I wasn't expecting that. For Sabbath, I'm like, dude, that's Sabbath.
Yeah.
But Maiden, how much it packed, it surprised me. Maybe it's because maybe in my mind I put Maiden maybe a little bit under. They're a big band, and I was dumb. I was like, oh yeah, these guys are huge all over the world. It doesn't just seem like it when you compare them to some of the bigger bands, because there was. One of the coolest things about those two shows is that there was generations there.
Yeah.
There was older folks, there were grandparents, then there was, guys bringing their kids being 4, 5, 7. I mean, I remember, I think it was Maiden or something. There was this mom with her 14-year-old kid going to see Maiden. I'm like, dude, this is badass. It was just so neat because that's something that it transcends generations.
Oh, definitely.
It's awesome because back in high school, you were talking about generations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go see the Family Values tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Korn, Slipknot, and Limp Bizkit at the time. And I was like, I've got to go see this. I love Korn, Slipknot, and Limp Bizkit at the time. and I couldn't find a chaperone to go with me, and so I ended up asking my science teacher, and he said yes. He was like, I will absolutely take you guys. He's a big Korn fan, you know.
Yeah.
Every time he see me in a shirt, he'd be like, oh, my shirt, dude. So he's like, oh yeah, you know. He's like, get permission from your parents, dude. He's like, well, totally go. And so, you know, I got permission from my mom, and a couple of my buddies got permission. The principal got wind of it, came to him, and it was like, that is completely unprofessional of you to go to see these bands with these kids. This isn't the type of music the kids should be listening to, and this and that. And so I remember the next day at the start of class, he had to tell us, like, hey, guys, you know, we're not going to be able to do it. And, sorry, you know? And my buddy goes, we were taking a test, and he put on the test, but why? Why, Mr. Hennegard, can't you take us to go see Family Values Tour as one of the answers on his science test?
That kind of reminds me of like plot points from like School of Rock or something,
Yeah.
where the teacher takes the kids to go like see a show.
He was awesome. He bartends now in West Lafayette.
Does he really?
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, he got cancer and stopped teaching, and, you know, when he stopped teaching...
At least he didn't go the Walter White route.
Yeah, he just started bartending, but he was a great dude, and actually, we had a
People handle things
garage...
differently.
Dude, instead of cooking meth, he's like, you know what? That was my missed opportunity. I'm gonna chaperone kids to metal concerts now.
we had a garage band class in my school.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, and it was fucking awesome. It was just jam fest. Like, you go and jam for an hour a day, and you get an A for it.
Where the hell was that in my school?
Right.
Ain't it? So we had a very musical school. Like, in elementary school, our principal was a biker, and he was in a cover band, and he used to just get us together for combos once a week, you know, depending on what grade you're in, what day. And he would just have us all there in the little combo center, and he would start playing, he'd take requests and play classic rock songs, Beach Boys, and all that kind of stuff. So the school was just very musical. And then when I was in high school, we had the garage band concert, and a band wanted to do a Tenacious D set, and Mr. Hennegard did the vocals for him.
Oh,
And it was just awesome, because he's our science teacher up there singing, I think it was Master Exploder and The Metal.
wow.
It's like, how awesome is that?
Wow. No fucker gently?
No, I wonder how we would have got that through at our little high school venue, sitting there in the auditorium.
This is a song for ladies.
All right, so before we wrap this up, I wanted to I sort of touched on it, but even though I've been to a couple of really big shows, there's still some acts I really want to see. I want to see Metallica. You know, I want to see Ozzy on his own. Like, seeing with Sabbath, I was like once in a lifetime, but I'd love to see him do a set of his stuff.
Now who would you want to see him with, Zach Wild or Gus G?
Zach Wild.
Probably Zach. And I like Gus because I really like some of his Dream Evil stuff. You know, little did I know that I was actually a fan of his before I knew who he was.
Wasn't he in Firewind too?
He could have. Yes, I
so,
think
yeah.
he was.
I really enjoyed Scream.
Yeah.
That one was great, in my opinion.
See, now you threw me off.
Sorry.
Metallica. I might even see Megadeth. I mean, I think going to see them would depend on whether or not if I like the album they just put out. Because with any band, they're going to have their songs they play live, but they're also going to play some songs from that record. Mm-hmm. And so I probably should have went and saw them on Endgame because I really love that record. And
I did.
so I like how you're just like, yes, this is my point. But there are still a few that I would like to see. So are there any bands that you haven't seen live that you would like to see?
I haven't seen anything other than local bands live.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so there was festivals where there was country acts or maybe rap acts, but I didn't pay attention and it doesn't count. So they don't count as my first big concert, but there's so many. I want to see Parkway Drive live. I had tickets to see Parkway once and then felt like deathly ill the day of the concert and couldn't go, so that was like $70 wasted. But hey, no, this summer I'm going to see Slipknot and Lamb of God. Me and him are, Blaine. And we're, what was that, August?
August 15th.
August 15th in Chicago. Them and Bullet for My Valentine and Motionless and White or whatever. So we're really only going for the second half of the show.
Yeah.
36 Crazy Fists is coming up. I'm excited to see them. I got to see Silosis if they come.
Yeah.
Metallica, I got to see. I need to see Sabbath. Pretty much any band that's been mentioned before this.
Well, see, and when they came around, I'm like, dude, these guys are gonna die soon.
Exactly. That's why I jumped on.
And it's like,
That's exactly why I jumped on it.
I'm like, okay, because I was talking to Rob, and at that time, like, we went to Maiden, and then I went to at that point, I had to go into a show, at least one show every year, like, when somebody comes around. And then I'm like, we're going. We have to go. So I actually, I think tickets went on sale on like Saturday morning, and I actually got up early, and he was like somewhere playing paintball with like no service. And I'm trying to like text him and like, dude, okay, we got this. Are you good with that? And I would not hear anything, and I would lose the tickets. And I wanted to make sure because he wanted pavilion seats, just like you said we had, but he wanted better than what we had from Maiden. But I wanted to make sure they weren't too much better, because we had a certain budget we had to stick to. So. Oh yeah, no,
he actually texted me and was like, "Hey, I got us tickets to Slipknot and Lamb of God. They were $13."
Yeah,
$13. I'm talking like we spent probably $130.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, to go see Sabbath, but definitely go see Sabbath if you get a chance.
For sure.
It's
a good time.
I would go see Led Zeppelin. I'm not even a huge Zeppelin fan. But just because, like, there's enough songs that I like from Zeppelin to know that if I go out, I have a good time. Not only that, but it's like like Zeppelin, like Plant and I can't remember their guy's name now.
Which one is Waters?
No, dude, that's Pink Floyd.
Shut up, man. Shut up.
Jimmy Page. That's it.
They're all the same to me.
It's late.
Yes.
It's late, and we're not drunk either.
No.
So, it's just brain farts. No, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. It's like they can never get along.
Yeah.
So it's like if they ever say, "Okay, we're touring the States one more time," it's like, "Okay, I'll go," just simply because I can say I saw Led Zeppelin.
Yep.
It's like if the Beatles were ever able to tour again.
Sepultura, they're getting ready to play a
Oh
show
yeah.
Months. And I was originally going to go to that just to say I've seen Sepultura, but like the more I thought about it, it doesn't have the Cavalera brothers in it. It's not the original lineup, not the original singer, not the same. And they're playing relatively close in Kokomo Center Stage. Great venue, by the way, in terms of getting awesome bands and awesome acts here. My bands that I really want to see before I head out of here. Metallica, definitely.
Yeah.
Metallica, they're the only Big Four band I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm getting ready to see... If I go to Mayhem this year, I'm going to see Slayer for second or third time. Parkway Drive, just like Nick over here, they're one of my favorite bands. I've actually been very fortunate this last year. I've knocked a ton of bands off my list.
That's cool.
36 Crazy Fists, which I'll be seeing here in a couple of months. Let's see, who else? Black Label Society, just so I can... Oh, wow. I would go
see
just so
Black
I can
Label.
see the Zakk Wylde show.
I mean, yeah, I'd definitely go see Black Label.
Yeah, you gotta see them at least once. Mudvayne, if they ever get back together.
Yeah, it's not really looking like they are, is it?
Nope. And I would definitely like to see Disturbed at least one more time.
Yeah.
I want to see System now that they're touring again.
Yeah. And possibly, maybe, they're always teasing a new record.
Always.
There's always somebody from the band going, it might be happening.
Tool's in the studio.
Yeah, they are,
They're going to be touring soon. So I wouldn't mind seeing them. 9 Inch Nails, I'd like to see them.
Iron Maiden. I got to see Iron Maiden.
You should. And I guess I'll just take a second here and wish our good friend Bruce Dickinson good bill of health. He unfortunately kind of came down with like a form of throat cancer. They found some tumors or whatever on the back of his tongue or something like that. I'm not sure about the full story. I read it, but it's late and I'm kind of brain farting. But dude, get healthy. You're one of the best frontmen of all fucking time.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
So yeah, get healthy and hopefully you can get back on the road. I'd definitely see you again.
I think he's in a hospital somewhere with like a Union Jack like draped over him. He's like rolling around the hospital. Come on, everybody!
he's the rallying call.
Thank you, oncology ward. Good night. Some of you forever.
Oh, he's a trooper, that's for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I guess what? I think that's almost going to wrap it up for us here today. I want to thank Nick and Blaine for coming on. I'd love to have you guys on again. In fact, Nick, you're going to be on next week for the little podcast on with Mike. He's coming back on, and Nate will be down here. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff next week. And so, guys, be sure to check that out. And before we go, Blaine has another song he wants us to play for our little bit of outro here. So what are we going to be listening to here?
We are going to be listening to my band, The Fallen Mind. I do vocals for them. Basically what this band is, it's for the longest time it was just me and this guy Will. He's been in other bands such as The Shipwrecked and GCR. And basically what he did was he just wrote all the music, recorded it all, and then he sent the track over to me. I did all the vocals, sent him the isolated vocal tracks. He just mixed it all. Well, now we're in the stages where we're trying to get show ready, so we're actually bringing members into the band to learn the music. So far we have Kyle Chrisman from Gorgasm, formerly of Human Filleted, and Joey Ross, formerly of Human Filleted and Shipwrecked. So we're still looking for a bassist, still possibly even a keyboardist, who knows. Yeah, I do vocals on this. I hope you really enjoy it. This song is called Casting Shadows. It's heavy as fuck, and have a good night.
All right, guys, and right before we play this, I want to remind you guys to go and check us out on all our social media. Yeah. Check us out, Journey into Comics Podcast on Facebook, Journey into Comics Podcast at gmail.com. Send us questions, comments, complaints, whatever you want. We're also on Twitter for GIC Podcast. We're also on Instagram, Journey into Comics, and YouTube. We're all over the fucking place. So until next time, which is next week. Whoa.
You need to make a MySpace.
Dude.
What about a Friendster?
What the fuck is Friendster?
You don't remember Friendster?
No.
Oh, man.
Can you get a name account?
Do you guys remember Bebo?
Yes.
Oh, that's pathetic. It's like MySpace for even teenier teenagers.
One quick thing before we play this and before we get out of here. How about some plugs for the Doom Room and all that stuff?
Doom Room. Yeah, we got a bunch of we got some cool shows coming up. We got a show after TippyCon, which is basically Lafayette's version of Comic-Con. I guess a bunch of I don't know exactly who all is going to be there. A bunch of artists and writers. But there's an after show. Fantasy Metal Lorengard, they're going to be there. They kick ass. They have really cool music to go along with some novels that they wrote. Then we have Final Fantasy Metal Night of the Round. I don't know much about them. I have yet to hear them. And then after them, I believe headlining the show is the ever famous Boner Joe 6, bringing you all your favorite 80s hair metal songs. So hope you enjoyed that. Some bands of mention around here in the Lafayette, Frankfurt region, and maybe even Indianapolis. We got Weed Bee, Lucifist, Antica Arcana, Born Under Burden, Only Human, Her Name is Mercy. In Indy, we have Damn Us All and Catalytic. So, and let's not forget Waiting Sacrifice. Those guys kick ass too. So, yeah, that about does it.
Metal.
Stay metal.
All right, guys, we're going to hit you out of here with some Casting Shadows. So
metal.
Until next week, keep it metal, guys.